What does representative self-governance mean at Terwilliger Plaza? The basic thing that it means is that we are in a unique situation where the residents, members as we call them, have direct input into electing the board of directors. They elect both what we term to be the inside board members as well as the outside board members. The inside board members are actually residents who live here. The outside board members are members of the board of directors that do not live at Terwilliger Plaza.
The outside board members are active professionals and are able to contribute their expertise for us.
I am not aware of any other nonprofit continuing care retirement community in the United States which has a majority of the board as residents who actually live here in the community. What that means is that through that election, your average resident who lives here has direct input into the governing body.
And the other thing that occurred to me is that it really is a direct election because it's not like somebody else comes up with a slate and you just kind of rubber stamp it. Someplace around November, I, as chair of the board, select the chair of the nominating committee. But after that, they're on their own. The chair of the nominating committee finds other members for that committee. They spend most of December looking for and soliciting applications for the board. The slate is presented in January. There's a candidate forum, and then there's an election in March. So it's really a choice on the part of members to elect these people.
As a part of that, then, because the board is elected in that way, the board itself takes more seriously and pays more attention to input from the residents. Members have a way to effect all policy by conversation with the board members, both inside and outside, as well as with administration.
The only vote you have is to vote on the board of directors. So that's the direct vote. Everything else is indirect, if you will, in that regard. We have lots of chances to have your opinions noted. They can be from very soft, like, again, you have an opportunity to find any number of the 6 people who live here. You have the floor meetings, you have resident council, which is it's built to be a conduit between resident concern to the administration and back again.
I can assure you we listen.
And that also leads to transparency, I think, because not only are a lot of our formal documents available to members, but they can find me in the hallway and say, well, Linda, how come the board did whatever it did? And I have an opportunity to explain. The other piece that's helpful, though, is, Linda, how come you're not doing whatever it is? And in some cases, it may be something that the board has never thought about or administration hasn't thought about, and we can be a conduit that way for the kind of information and changes to make this place better.
Another distinction regarding self-governance between Terwilliger Plaza and other continuing care retirement communities, especially in Oregon, is that up until a few years ago, it was really varied from community to community whether there was any resident contact with the board. And a number of years ago, there got to be a pretty significant discussion between residents of continuing care retirement communities and their administration, and ultimately through the state. And the state rewrote some rules for continuing care retirement communities which required there be resident representation on the board, and the requirement remains that now that continuing care retirement communities must have at least one resident representative to the board of directors with a voice, but not having vote. Vote is not a requirement. Whereas Terwilliger Plaza has been, has had that since the beginning. The majority of the board of directors having both voice and vote, quite obviously. So again, that's a distinction. That's something that sets Terwilliger Plaza apart.
Because the board is responsible for Terwilliger Plaza, You've got to look at the entire package, and you've got to say not only what's going to work today, what's going to work next week, what's going to work in a week from now, or a month from now, a year from now, and what's going to work with all the variations that are out in the community that we're not aware of. You know, changes in healthcare, changes in the expectation of people as they retire, changes in senior living, et cetera.
I very much like that idea of collective responsibility. That really shows that what's going on here is, if I were a resident here, it goes beyond my specific personal point of view. And that is, I think, what the board of directors in the representative self-government has done a very good job of over the years, is paying attention to that collective responsibility and not necessarily to their personal self-interest. In terms of self-governance and what self refers to, self very much refers to the community, the self, the community of Terwilliger Plaza. It again points to that collective responsibility. It points to the fact that the vision has to be beyond my own personal self-interest. And what we have to do is we have to govern for the self of Terwilliger Plaza. By definition, all nonprofits are self-governing, if you will. But in terms of Terwilliger Plaza, the self-governance, representative self-governance, recognizes that Terwilliger Plaza is an independent community and is governing for itself as it goes into the future.
Because of our governance structure, we do have the power to define our future.
I think very much that there are those different levels of input, and as I'm thinking about that in terms of member input, is the different levels that are there of formal as well as informal ways of input. We have a lot of formal structure through the committees, through the resident council, through the board, but then through the individual contact that you can have with the inside members on a day-to-day basis, there's also an informal aspect to that for input, where you can make your voice heard in so many different ways.